Watch everybody, welcome to the Gooner, a channel dedicated to Arsenal Football Club, who, as we all know, are by far the greatest team the world has ever seen. And tonight's the night. We finally get to play our game in hand. And I'm going to be taking a look at the possible lineups and predicting what I think is going to happen. Before I do that, why not hit the subscribe button, and that way I can keep you updated every single day with all the news and views from our beloved club. So tonight's the night we finally get to play our game in hand, and I am thrilled that it's Everton that we're facing. I couldn't hope for better opposition. Well, I mean, Chelsea, they're bobbins at the moment. But with Everton, it's poetic. And if we beat them tonight, we go 5 points clear with 13 games to play. And it is in our hands. Since beating us, Everton have not had the best of it. They lost to Villa on the weekend in a game with lots of shots, but no one really looking like scoring until Villa did. In fact, Everton have scored only once since playing us, and that was a beautiful goal by Seamus Coleman, but his first goal of the season. They are without Dominic Calvert-Lewin, which gives them a little bit more up front. In fact, Neal Maupay looks like starting, and as somebody who watches a lot of Brighton games, I know I seem to say that a lot, but Maupay, I was surprised that Brighton sold him to Everton. But since signing for Everton, he's scored only once. And this is a player who is banging in a goal every 4 games for Brighton. It says something about their lack of creativity and also just where they are in terms of confidence. But we know exactly how they're going to line up against us tonight. And it's going to be solid, defensive. And they will do everything they can to get a draw and sneak a win from a set piece. So they're going to set out to frustrate us. And if they're as physical as teams are against us at the moment, then I expect a tough battling performance. The only slight cause for concern, I think you could say, is that actually there's only one team that Mikel Arteta has a worse record against, and that's Manchester City. Leaving that to one side because I don't really think that's relevant to the context of this situation, here's how I expect us to line up. So, all right, no prizes for guessing. There's going to be Aaron Ramsdale in goal. He has been superb, and he had a nice long rest against Leicester, so he should be fighting fit and raring to go. At right back, Tomiyasu, I'm sure will get his chance in the future, but it's certainly Ben White who keeps his place. At left back, Zinchenko. Now, here's the only area where I could see possibly Arteta throwing a cat amongst the pigeons. It could be a game where he decides to give Kieran Tierney moments. Going for that, well, gives you a little bit more width. We're probably not expecting to do a lot of defending down the right-hand side anyway. And, you know, it's minutes for a player who, there are rumblings that he's looking at alternatives, and certainly Newcastle are apparently courting him. I think Arteta will go with what he always goes with, which is to try and keep the same side wherever possible. So expect Zinchenko to play and expect him to spend most of his time in midfield pushing on. Gabriel, who I think had his very best game this season to Leicester, was titanic, and Saliba next to him looked calm and composed, as he so often does. Now, Arteta was quite funny about this because they did have a little bit of an on-the-field spat, Saliba and Gabriel, at the end of the Leicester game. And when he was asked about it, he said, look, this is what he wants from his players. Because we won, we kept a clean sheet, we never really looked in trouble, but they still have standards that push them to disagree with each other when they don't think they're quite meeting them. And I think that is the mark of champions. And I think he referred to them as a sort of married couple. So whilst I'm not condoning any kind of violence within a couple, you know, a bit of pushing and shoving between these two is probably not the sign of the end of a beautiful relationship. I think it's the beginning of one. And those two will almost unquestionably start. Although at this point, I do want to say Jakob Kivior played in the under-21s. I watched the highlights, or his edited highlights. Whilst it was unspectacular, certainly looks like he's going to be a good addition to the team. He looks steady, he looks composed, he looks calm, and he looks difficult to get past. Emil Smith-Rowe also played in that game. We'll touch on him in a little while. So the back four and keeper, I think, are going to be unchanged, and probably not a big game for them tonight. Although set pieces, they're going to need to be strong, as they have been all season. The midfield. Now, the big question around the midfield, we might as well get to it straight away, is does Jorginho start, or do you bring in Thomas Partey? Now, it's not entirely clear that Thomas Partey is 100% fully fit, and there are games coming up that we're going to need him for. So the argument I would put here is, if he's 100% fit, I still don't think I'd play him. I think Jorginho, this is not likely to be a game where we need Thomas Partey driving forward. I think we're going to have a lot of the possession in and around their area anyway. If he's not 100% fit, then I wouldn't want to exacerbate anything. And there is another point here. Jorginho, when he's been asked to come in for the last 2 away games, not only helped us to win by scoring assisting for Emi Martinez's goal against Villa, but he was imperious against Leicester and didn't put a foot wrong. And I think it sends a kind of wrong message if players can come in and get 2 great games under their belt and are still dropped. I think everybody knows where they stand in a team where the person actually in the starting lineup has to play badly to be unseated, or you have to show that you can do better when you come on. Now, Thomas Partey he's one of our best players. I just don't necessarily think that he is 100% necessary in this game, and we could always bring him off the bench if something goes wrong. I would probably start with Jorginho. What Arteta does, if I had to put my neck on the line and say what I think Arteta's going to do tonight, I would say he's probably going to start with Jorginho as well. Although I don't think anyone would be surprised if it was Thomas Partey. Granit Xhaka for me is the other one. And this is where, if you did play Kieran Tierney on the left, you could play Zinchenko in the middle. I've spoken about this in the last few videos. Emile Smith-Rowe, who did play half the match against the under-21s just to get match fitness. There has been a lot of talk about him training to play in that number 8 Xhaka role. Obviously, he's unlikely to play much on the left with Martinelli and Trossard there now. And Odegaard is a mainstay and captain, so it's unlikely that even with the number 10 shirt, he's going to get to play in that position all that often. So does the future for Emile Smith-Rowe look a little bit more like playing in the middle of the park alongside Jorginho or Thomas Partey? I don't think it's going to happen tonight. I think hopefully we score a couple of goals with 2 or 3-0 up and he can bring him on just to rest some players. Arteta has shown in recent weeks that he will not bring on players unless he's sure of the result. So it has limited time for the players on the bench that might play more attacking positions. Emile for me starts on the bench, and I think Granit Xhaka will play again. He has an incredible engine, but he has looked tired. So maybe he'll start with him and then swap him out for Jorginho or Thomas Partey as the game goes on. Again, if we are comfortable, if it's a 2-0 cushion or better. Odegaard, I think he had a sort of anonymous first half against Aston Villa and then really started to put it together. It wasn't a fantastic performance from him in the Leicester game. But what I found really interesting is if you looked at the positions that were taken up by Trossard, who, nominally played as our striker, he occupied those positions on the left, and Odegaard an almost identical set of positions on the right. So what we're kind of playing with right now is it's almost that no real striker, and we've got those 2 attacking midfielders pushing into the forward positions, and Martinelli and Saka, the horns of the bull, the kind of Zulu attack formation. Now, I really like that. And I think what that gives you is it gives you the trickiness and the flexibility. Odegaard, for me, and his passing tonight is exactly what we need. So he will start anyway. He's our captain. You'd expect him to start. Does Eddie come back into the team? Well, there's cases for and against here. One, a lot's been talked about Eddie. Was Eddie dropped? Or was he rested against Leicester? Well, for me personally, and I'm sure for Eddie, I don't think it makes any difference at all whether you're dropped or rested. If you're absolutely essential, integral, and undroppable, then you play every single minute of every single game, and a la Saka, for example. Eddie's not that. He, I thought, was kind of blameless for the performance. I think he played quite well against Aston Villa and laid on an absolute sitter for Odegaard. Had he not missed that, game would have been slightly different. Maybe he would have started against Leicester, but you can't get away from the fact that the interchange between Martinelli and Trossard gave us something completely different. Again, against a team who didn't offer much going forward. And you do need that interchange, you do need that movement, and we just looked more dangerous. Apart from anything, Trossard's nutmeg assist was an absolute joy to watch. And if it wasn't for VAR... less said about the VAR at the moment. It boils my blood. I'm going to do a separate video about it, so I'm not going to talk about it here. But VAR decisions, particularly over the last few weeks, that coupled with the fact that referees just don't seem to want to book people for tackling or fouling Saka. As I said, it's a separate video. For me, does he bring Eddie back in? Well, on one level, you saw the rejuvenation of Martinelli when he dropped him and brought him back on. I think the same would happen for Eddie. I just think that we're more likely to need him against Bournemouth than we are against Everton. Against Everton, a player who gets in behind teams is going to find it really difficult to operate. And his kind of hold-up play is far less important if we're dominating and if most of the match is being played around Everton's penalty area. I think that for the same reasons I mentioned earlier, you don't really want to break up a winning team. I think Arteta is going to stick with Trossard up front in that kind of false nine and Martinelli on the left. And Saka, who, well, he still hasn't signed the contract. Everybody seems relatively certain that he will. What can I say? I really, really, really need this legend in the making to sign his contract. He is the number 7, joins a long and illustrious list of 7s that I remember or almost remember: Liam Brady, Rocky Rocastle. I heard a beautiful comparison between Saka and Rocastle, and it just made me think absolutely strong, powerful players. Rocky Rocastle was a real gentleman who everybody loved off the pitch, but on it, no quarter asked and none given. He could go through you, play a beautiful pass. He was Brazilian-esque. And Saka, for me, there's so many reasons to compare the two, but I think at the moment Saka is one of the greatest players in world football with potential to be. I mean, when you think of his age as well, it's just sign that thing. That's what I'm saying. But he hasn't quite put pen to paper yet. But he will start tonight, and he will start every game, and somehow he will survive the abuse that he gets from fouls from players all up and down the pitch. And before the game against Leicester, and people making quite a lot of this, before the game, I think it was actually before the game against Aston Villa, Thierry Henry said to Saka, you can't be too nice. I think that's a misjudgment. I don't think Saka's ever been too nice. I think he's a great guy off the pitch, but he has a winning mentality on it, and I don't think he's... I think he can roughhouse with the best of them. He's a strong guy, he's physically strong, and he's capable. So I think he's always had that spirit about him, and that's one of the reasons I tip him to be one of the greatest players we've ever had, provided he stays. And I think that in encouraging him to stay, I would merely say this. I would say, look, wherever you go and wherever you play, you will wherever you go and wherever you play, you are going to win accolades and you are going to win trophies. You are simply a one-in-a-generation style footballer, but it will never feel as good to you as it will winning it in front of your Emirates crowd. He's a product of the youth team. He's grown up loving us, and I think that he loves the environment and the players that he's around. So sign it. Anyway, I wasn't expecting to go on as long as I have about that, but it is incredibly important. Might give us a little boost if he signs it just before the match tonight. However, that's the lineup I predict. I predict that Trossard, Martinelli and Saka make up the front 3. It's great news about Gabby Jesus been training with the first team. It's not clear to me what games he's going to start, whether he's going to be phased in for the upcoming games against Sporting, home and away. I want to do a video about the question around this Europa Cup as well, Europa League. I'm going to do a video around the Europa League as well, because there are some really key questions that I've seen coming in. Tonight, my match prediction is that we will win this game 4-0. Part of that is me wanting it to manifest what I want to see happen. But I also feel like we'll score 2 goals in the first half. That'll throw their game plan out. They are lacking confidence. They are short of their key player here. They are no longer experiencing that positive bounce back that they had when Sean Dyche came in. And quite importantly, I don't really think they're worrying about relegation as much. There are just teams below them, one of which could be Chelsea soon enough, but there are teams below them, I think, that will struggle more. And so I think Everton are going to be safe. And Sean Dyche, I hope, gets some time to rebuild that team in his mould, because that's kind of what they need right now. They need a rebuilding job. They need a rebuilding job like Chelsea need a rebuilding job. And you know what? I think if I'm going to give my Le Coq of the Week award to anyone this week, and I do that on Sundays, so stay posted. Lots can change in a week in football, as it can in politics. But what did you all think of Graham Potter likening himself and needing time in the way that Arteta needed time at Arsenal? No, I'm not having that. Look, if it's one thing to have taken over Arsenal in the situation we were in, with high-profile players not performing, with a lack of spirit in the team, and too many sort of players that just weren't gelling at all. And the resources Arteta had, if you'd given Mikel Arteta 600 million just in a January transfer window, maybe the comparison would be fair. I think it's reaching. I don't know how long Graham Potter stays in charge. I was really disappointed he left Brighton. Having said that, look, if he gets sacked, it's, he's on 12 million a year. I don't know how much of it they'd have to pay out, but assuming it was the full amount, he gets 50 million for 6 months' work, and for helping steer Chelsea to where they belong in the table on their history. If you look at the pre-Abramovich days, Chelsea, which I remember very well, bit of a nothing team really, and it does kind of sicken me a little bit that you can come into football, spend a load of money, and do a Man City or a Chelsea. I'm taking nothing away from Man City. I think they're a fantastic team to watch. They've got some of my favourite players in it. Chelsea have got absolutely nothing. They've got Chelsea, on the other hand, I don't see a team there. They were woeful against Tottenham. I mean, against Tottenham, when a Chelsea team starts losing to Tottenham, it is time to pack your bags as a manager. Anyway, I will be talking about Le Coq of the Week on Sunday and doing a full review of the week. Lots more before then. I'm going to do a match review tomorrow based on tonight's game. Like I said, I'm predicting a 4-0. I'd love to hear what you think the score is going to be. Personally, I know it's cold in London at the moment, but I think that the Emirates is going to be a cauldron, and the football is going to be electric, and the combination is going to warm our hearts. I am looking forward to doing a video tomorrow where we celebrate being 5 points clear with just 13 games to go, and the pressure going back on Man City as they face something of a fixture congestion in the month to come. That's quite enough from me. Love to hear your comments. Do hit the subscribe. It's a brand new channel. In fact, I celebrate my first month as a channel. The views have been fantastic. We could do with a few more subscribers, but I want to say thank you to everybody who's subscribed so far, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. See you soon, and lots of love.